All right. Hey, everybody. We are here for our first episode of the re-kickoff of the Summoning Hour podcast. And with me today, I've got Tyler Labelle, 3D artist. He's been doing some work on like the latest Batman VR game, and he's done Defense Grid 2, which I was a huge fan of Defense Grid 1 and 2. So I'm kind of excited to nerd out about Defense Grid 2. But welcome, Tyler. And I'm your host, Joe Belousek, or Warlock Recall on the interwebs. So welcome to the episode. I'm excited to be back. You can tell I'm kind of jazzed all over the place. Maybe a little nervous since it's been like 6 years since the last episode, but here we go. We're doing this again, and I'm really excited just to talk games, our stories, Tyler's history, what he's learned as an artist, where he's at, what he's up to. So Tyler, welcome to the show.
Joe, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we'll start with a key framing. What is your favorite game?
Ooh, that is a good question. I would say Parasite Eve 2 on the PS1. Yeah, PS1.
Okay, why is that?
So it's an action RPG by Square. They were Enix still at this time. So it's got sort of a magic system, plus it's got third person like shooting mechanics as well. So it's think of like a mix between Final Fantasy and Resident Evil, something like that.
Okay.
If you've never played or heard of the game.
I've heard of it. I never played it. That genre is not quite for me. So I'm a little, and I don't think I had a PlayStation at the time. So that's definitely outside of my wheelhouse. But I'm sure they've done a remake by now, right?
They did a third game on the PSP, and I'm sure they have it like on the PSN network, but they haven't done a remake as far as I know.
Okay, well, maybe with this age of HD remakes and remasters, maybe we'll get one sooner than later.
It'd be nice. I'd love to play it again.
So let's see. Let's talk a little bit about more of your history. Like I mentioned, Batman VR. That wasn't the official name. What was that?
No, it was Batman Arkham Shadow.
There it is. What was that like? Like VR to me is still a little bit of a mystery box. Like I worked on Meta Horizons a little bit, and so I got to see kind of these handmade, handcrafted, smaller games from what I remember of it. What was working in VR as a 3D artist like for you?
It was interesting. So being in VR, as a player, you get, right up close to everything.
Yeah.
So I'm primarily an environment artist, but my job at Meta was also as outsource integration. So I oversaw all the outsource work that came in and out, and I did all the fixing and all the critiquing. So I had to be in headset every single day looking at assets this close to my face, making sure textures weren't smearing, that geo wasn't popping the wrong way, that the like hitboxes and stuff weren't colliding in the wrong ways. So it's a little different than your standard third person game or even a first person shooter where clipping is different, because if you clip inside of a VR game, you're inside that wall, and it can cause disorientation. It actually gives people headaches and motion sickness. So it's a different ball game.
Yeah, I have to imagine like you adopted a bit of QA's role, or you were able to help inform QA a little bit more about what you were looking for in like art bugs. How did you go about like being in headset is like different than just like looking at a model in a model viewer or opening it up and just kind of looking at it in a sanitary environment, like no game environment, or even just kind of loading it up in a debug level and looking at it there. I have to imagine you saw less of that kind of toolage, but you were in the game more often than not. So what was your relationship with QA like, being that you were both in VR a lot of the time?
So with QA, our team was actually really small for QA. The entire team was QA pretty much, until like the very end of the game when we actually had an external QA team look at things.
Okay.
So I was basically model QA. So if something looked bad in headset, I knew immediately. So it wasn't a problem for anyone else on the team. So I was the first quality gate. So if I thought it was bad, it wasn't approved and it wasn't in game.
Wow. So you kind of had like one pass at everything, and then like just kind of back and forth. What you got initially was what you had to work with. You send it back and forth. A lot of trading, I'm guessing.
There was at first, but eventually the partners we were working with, we got them trained to a point where basically as soon as it came back, I just approved it.
Great. I know.
Yeah.
I've worked with, I mean, was that your first time working with outsourcing?
As the official, outsource reviewer, yes. I've worked with outsourcing in the past where like, they just needed an extra set of hands because everyone else is busy. So I, stepped in. It's like, oh, okay, this looks okay. Maybe fix this part, do we need to reduce polys on this or texture budget on that? Something like that.
Was that What was that experience like for you? I'm assuming they were like remote. You didn't get much FaceTime with them. You was basically just everyone working from home in that relationship, like it was early 2020, 2021 kind of deal with quarantine and everything. So I'm imagining you kind of kept up a lot of those same communication systems, review patterns.
Yeah, so our partners are actually in two different time zones. So I was in the morning, I was hitting one of them at the end of the day, and at the end of my day, I was hitting one of them at the beginning of their day. So, it was interesting, but I I wake up early and I started my day at 5 a.m. every day. So there were times when I was able to just Slack message the team and be like, hey, you guys forgot to put in the source file for this thing, and I need that, and they could just send it immediately. Otherwise, it's, a day turnaround to get that file, or however long until the manager saw that message and uploaded it, because they had people working sometimes around the clock, or like at night. We sometimes had meetings at, I think the latest meeting we had was 9 or 10 p.m. But I went home and I chilled for a few hours and then got online, and it's like, hey, things are great, or hey, these are what we need to fix. But overall, actually, with the teams we had, they were really good about everything. So there wasn't a lot of need for a lot of back and forth communication on everything. They just kind of got it.
So that's really nice when you can have a partnership like that. I know I've worked with outsourcing studios in the past where like I joined a team late, they've already had this relationship, and then there's a project pivot and everyone kind of has to catch up together and being like, okay, there's new feedback coming in from a new art director. Okay, we got to start hitting the style more. And then there's this whole recalibration of everything. So to have a studio pick up on what they need to do quickly and make it so that the end of your project is pretty snappy and going forward on that first review, that's a great place to be. I imagine that that's taking a lot of pressure off of your plate and you're able to just look at things, give it a quick review because you know what those common feedback pieces were. And so when you could check that real quick and pass it on, that allowed you to go back to what you needed to be doing, which if you weren't just doing outsourcing management, what were you doing on your time as the, I guess, almost principal 3D artist at this point? Or maybe you had like one or two teammates?
Our art team was very small. I think there was 7 or 8 like actual 3D artists on our team. I was by no means the principal. We actually had a principal 3D artist, but it's funny. We joke that I did more 3D art than the actual art team, even though that wasn't my primary job, because everyone else was focused on building levels. So, we had a base toolkit that we had built out, and they were, responsible for building out, all the big cityscapes and dungeons and everything. And, if since they didn't have time, I'd go and I'd build, new modular sets of walls and tunnels and stuff like that. Just easy things that we had these texture sets for. So I just could easily slap texture on it.
Right. Okay. So you were building modular sets. I playing with Legos, building new shapes, slapping textures around that you already had. Those were already approved. So I imagine your turnaround was pretty quick to be able to give the other artists pieces to play with, give you some opportunity to set like some scenes of your own, be like, look at this. How does this play out? How does this work for you? What what were you hoping to get out of that role with, because being outsourced management essentially, and then making pieces for others to play with, and but you're the environment artist and well there's other level designers, like what were you hoping to kind of bridge that gap with? How were you putting like your style on what you were hoping to deliver?
Good question. And I kind of was trying to be the stopgap between everything, because we were pressured to get stuff done really quick. And every milestone, it was like, well, what are we cutting? And you know how that goes. It's like we had these features that we wanted to get in. It's like we have so many people that can do this, but everyone's got stuff on their backlog they're trying to get through. It's like, all right, we need these sewer levels done, but we don't have the base kit for the sewer level. So it's like, all right, cool. I need to get these tunnels done for these guys. So in between doing reviews and QAs for the levels, making sure that they ran smoothly, because we had to maintain a 72 FPS throughout the entire game.
Okay, there's a big
Like,
constraint.
yeah, like every level had to run at 72, like period.
Yeah, I mean, if like you were saying earlier, any amount of disjointed connection between the player and their headset is going to make them sick. It's going to be really jarring, more so than normal bugs for the most part. Like, so holding to that constraint, I imagine that set your art budget's pretty limited. So you also being the one to look at quality of the art, you have to go, how much can we push this memory budget? How much can we push the polys and the texture quality? Like, did you
You
have
know,
much of that balancing?
we did, but it was crazy the amount of quality we could actually get out of the limited textures and the poly budgets we had.
Okay.
Like you'd be surprised what you can get with a 256 map.
Okay. I mean, the game looks great, and it got rave reviews. It was like pretty much well praised as like a really solid VR game. Which outside of Half-Life Alyx, and maybe Gorilla Tag, I can't think of too many other examples of games that are like really being like, this is a great VR experience.
Yeah, I mean, we got awards like well after, the Game Awards, and like I think well into last year we were still getting praises from people saying winning this, winning that, for various different things. So it was a really great feeling.
When you guys shipped, what was that like for you? Because how many shipping credits do you have, or what was that moment for you like that for you?
Now I gotta count. One, two, four game titles. I think it's four. Yeah, shipping was crazy because you get down to the wire and it's like, are we gonna get this out the door on time? Because it got close. I'm not gonna lie. And
It's always
some of
close.
those some of those last levels, because like when we were all done with outsourcing and we were done, with all the modeling and everything, all the different features we wanted to have in, and we're like, okay, this is deadline for any new anything. I was going through the first half of the game, checking for, anything that could be optimized. Do we need extra geo on this? Can we reduce textures here? And it's like, okay, some of these levels aren't running as smooth as we want them to. So it's like I was redoing assets and we cut a couple of levels because memory budget just, was too high. But yeah, like we accidentally launched a day early actually.
No, how did that
Yeah.
happen?
Someone hit the button on accident on the, whatever team handles the executables, I think. Don't quote me on it. I don't know exactly what happened, but all I know is, someone on the team was like, "Hey, our game's live." And we're all like, "What?" It's like, "Yeah, it's on the store right now."
It was a soft release, just
Yeah.
a little bit of pressure for the players to come in. It was totally intentional.
Yeah, but like players loved it and, everyone we had play it, like you said, had great responses to it. I don't think I saw a negative review. That or my algorithm just hid it from me.
So, like, this was a Batman game, officially licensed.
Yep.
What was it like? Did you have any opportunity to work more with licensed assets of like, this is your interpretation of Gotham City or like the Bat Signal or anything like that?
Yeah, so we did actually work a little bit. Well, we had to work with WB, and there was some communication with Rocksteady. I wasn't part of those conversations, but we used assets from Night, from Asylum, and stuff like that as reference points. So we brought those assets into the game and we recreated them from scratch. So they are the assets from the game. So people will complain about, oh, they just took that from the other game. Oh, we took it, but then completely rebuilt the geo and textures.
Yeah,
So
I mean, you have to do that for
matched.
optimization. But like, yeah, I was going to say, it looks like Arkham Asylum. It looks like Arkham Knight. And so kudos for like being able to remake something and keep that authentic look to it, because I mean that prior series of games was phenomenal. And for you all to continue that legacy of phenomenal titles with the same art style, but optimized for a VR platform and to pull it off in VR, I think that is certainly a feather to put in your hat. Like, that's an accomplishment by itself.
Yeah,
VR
I
is
mean,
challenging, period.
yeah, I mean, the Arkham series is a big name to live up to. And unfortunately, a lot of people didn't get to play it because it is on VR, which, I wish more people could because Arkham fans would love to get their hands on it.
Yeah, I got to get my kid's VR headset out of his hands so I can give it a shot, because he's still all up in G-Tag and what else? Among Us VR. Like, two very different experiences. But I'm like, can we play an action game? Let's do this. Come on, we can do this. You can give Dad a turn. Thinking about IPs and everything, knowing that you're on the hunt like I am myself, trying to find what's next for us. If there was an IP you wanted to work with and be like really close to the IP owners, or be able to collaborate to tell like a fun reimagining of that IP, is there one that stands out to you?
I don't know about IP, but I've been, asked this question during interviews. Like, it's generally the question is, what's your favorite kind of game, right? Two kinds of games I've never gotten to work on, and I would love to work on them. One, a mech action game. So like Armored Core.
Yes.
I would love, absolutely love to work on one of those games.
Okay.
Like anything in that vein. If I could get the chance to work on a game like that, I would love that. Second kind of game, like dark fantasy, like Bloodborne, Dark Souls, your Elden Ring type game, something
Yeah.
in that realm. Like those are the
Oh,
two kinds of
absolutely.
games I would just die to work on.
And I forget all of the announcements that came from the summer showcase, but I remember Mortal Coil 2 showed up, and then there was a couple of other dark fantasy Bloodborne kind of style games. I'm like, that genre is kind of hitting another wave of new entries coming in, so it feels like that there's opportunity there to learn that. Man, that would be exciting. Now here's what we do. We do a crossover mech action in a dark fantasy style. I mean, you get a dark fantasy Gundam going, and I mean, you're talking
Oh, yeah.
untapped potential right there. I mean, Gundam 00 in like black and red,
Yeah.
please. Like I'd pay for that model. I mean, I see all those models in those boxes behind you. I'm surprised you didn't say Gundam. I felt like I was giving you a softball to be like Gundam, no doubt. But I mean, you nailed it with the mech genre.
Yeah, I mean, I've played what there's the Gundam Dynasty Warriors game essentially, and then there are other Gundam games, but I don't think they do this series like much justice. Like they make them, in my opinion, feel too slow, and they don't do
Okay.
what the anime does, in my opinion.
I mean, it would be really like I keep going back to Gundam Wing, and I'm like,
Mm.
give me all of that deep political intrigue, and like that would just be a slow like visual novel style with like some action sequences. And I'm like, give me more action sequences, but I understand that that's not just what that genre or that series is. There has to be a bit of that human consequence and that like how do you negotiate that distance from your own humanity or your own origin and being able to rule yourself like that. Those themes are prevalent throughout. So I could see that being a tough balance to strike in a Gundam game without it being too slow or too fast. I mean, I think the only other real comparison I have to a show like that I can think of that's in sci-fi would be like Star Trek Deep Space Nine, where it was very political, very much about the relationships of people and less action.
Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons I didn't like Deep Space Nine when it first came out. Was it, I love Enterprise or not Enterprise, Next Generation. Like
Yeah,
I grew up watching that. No, no, Next Gen. So I love Next Gen. When that ended, and Deep Space Nine was airing, I was like, you're right, it's all political. Like
yeah.
it wasn't my show.
Yeah. I think I've felt what you were saying about the Gundam series feeling slow or too slow is that like it takes too much time to do that world building to have that really deep kind of I care about this character and the overall theme and threads that are going on. And unless you're in for a slow burn, and games just aren't that. So if you could like put a Gundam game to another game's pacing or another game's story pacing, is there another one that you would want it to kind of parallel better?
I guess the parallel would probably be like, what is it, Front Mission? That's a turn-based game, and like so. I mean, I guess that works, but at the same time, like I'd prefer to be, flying around and doing all the cool stuff that you see in the show.
Yeah, you mentioned turn-based, and I think my mind went straight to like the XCOM games, the most recent ones, and thinking like, okay, I could see that. There's something deep there, and like they introduced so many different types of Gundams in the series, and like
Yeah.
artillery ones, and like you could really go deep on either an RTS or a turn-based strategy, and have
Hmm.
like that variety, and feel like you have your own unit, your own like style of your battalion and everything. That's pretty cool. I could handle that. That would be great. But yeah, I think a well-oiled action game could go pretty far. Now I'm thinking about one mech game from way back when. Shoot. It was a PS2 game. Zone of the Enders. That's what I'm
Okay.
thinking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, that might be closer.
It was cool, like classic kind of anime storytelling beyond mechs, beyond like IPs and everything, or genres that you want to be included in. Is there something more that you want to grow into as an artist? Whether it's environment art, going into level design, focusing on art outsourcing, where do you think the future takes you? Where do you want to go?
That's it's been kind of a tough decision for me. I've done a little of everything. I've kind of been the guy that's like, I have my job, but since there's always a needed task for something, I've done level design. I've done the outsource reviews. I've done everything short of animation, characters, and VFX. So I guess the outsourcing review has been kind of the biggest thing I've been doing the last few years, and it's really nice that kind of communication and camaraderie that I had with the teams I was working with. Like they were really nice people, and like the looks on their faces when I sent them the video reviews that I did for them, like being in headset and showing off their work like in game and like giving them praise and everything, like just lighting up, that was pretty cool. So I guess I'd kind of like to stay on the outsourcing route. But that being said, I still love making art. And I guess I still made art doing that because some of the stuff, it's like, I'm not going to send this back. I'm just going to fix it myself.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I think what you're talking about with that relationship with outsourcers and co-developers is something that is desired in a lot of companies, but it is not executed on. From personal experience, I can tell you managing that relationship is not easy, and it's not always a mutual expectation. Sometimes you get some people who are just like, just give me the work, let me do it, and leave me alone. Some people are like, give me more feedback, give me more feedback. And then it's like, I can't spend all my time giving feedback. So striking that balance is what a lot of studios were looking for previously. But right now it feels like co-development is still very much a prevalent experience that is needed both internal to the team and having someone who can manage it back to the studios on those co-dev teams or those outsourcing teams, and providing that feedback and that candor of, here's the feedback, we know you can do it, we're talking to you as if you are in the studio with us, has been by far the most successful way I've seen that relationship get managed. Is that, yes, you work for another company, but we're working together and we both care about this game and we both care about our work, has been the way that it's worked best for me. And it seems like they're waiting to be given that respect. Would you say that like they want the same thing, where like you had a similar experience?
Yeah, I actually 100% agree with that because we had that relationship with the teams we worked with. They basically were treated like they were just part of the team. Like barring the stuff that we absolutely couldn't say to them, it was a back and forth, like, whatever you need, just ping me. Like, you get the answer straight away. Like, you want more feedback? I'll give you more feedback, And the more I gave to them, the more they were interested and the better quality stuff they gave back, honestly.
Yeah. And like, as much as they are a step removed, I remember there was a time I was working with an outsourced studio and they were like 7-8 people, and they were embedded into our art pipeline for VFX. And one of them was going on maternity leave. And it's like, as the producer who was involved on that team and like working with the co-developer's own producer, being like, it could have been one of those moments where it's like, you're down a person and we have no bandwidth to cover all this work. How are you going to make it work? How are you going to satisfy me, the customer that you're supposed to be doing work for? We were not in that situation. We had developed that rapport where we could go, congratulations, take your time, come back when you're ready. We got this. Work will be here and we'll figure it out. That person got to take their time off. Work was handled. And when they came back, yes, we were grateful that they came back. And yes, we were grateful that we could redistribute the balance of work. But that was also that production's call of, how are we going to make that work? That is balancing work and life balance.
Mhm.
Like, there is nothing more exceptional than that. And that leads to that work-life balance. And so it was great to be able to do that. And that's how it's got to work. Anything less is treating people less than human and like a resource. I really don't like it when we refer to people as resources. It is, to me, not an okay thing to do. I don't like doing it.
Yeah, I've definitely seen my fair share of that.
Right. Man, I'm not sure if we want to go down this route, but there are certainly horror stories. Maybe we could do that off camera, off recording, because I mean, to me, that's what GDC is for. You go there for camaraderie and hopium, as well as a little bit of commiserating and horror storytelling, stories from the trenches almost. Do you have any stories that are like just something that you tell your fellow artists, or something that you're just like, hey, we had this one crazy thing? It's not necessarily a horror story, or any kind of crazy stories you got from like Batman or Defense Grid?
What are the craziest things I've seen? I guess not having source control at all, period.
For what game?
It wasn't a game. Just
Okay.
one of the places I work, no source control.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it was.
That's
And yes, it caused
that's
problems.
oh, I can imagine. This is something similar. This was on early development of Guild Wars 2, and we had our classic designer tool. It was all in-house and everything. And so we had version 1 working on it. It was buggy. They were figuring it out, and there was like just problems over and over throughout development, and it was costing actual development time, and we were cutting content along the way. And it's like someone checks in something over on folder A, and then folder D, subfolder AA, DD, CC, EE, all the way down like 7 layers deep. Someone checks in something over there, and it was deleting what was in folder A. And so, and there wasn't, it was like, what the heck was going on? So we shifted to developing the second iteration of the development tool. So half the team is like 3/4 of the team is working on the old thing, struggle busing through getting anything to stay in the game while a new tool is getting feedback and being built. I've never had a more apt description of laying the tracks while the train is running. And we shifted from one tool to the other over the course of development and finally got it more stable. And I think that was the tool that they used the rest of the development on Guild Wars 2. And that was one of those things I never thought I would see. How do you get into this step where you're so far in, where you're building things and it's deleting things right out from underneath you?
Yeah.
Terrifying stuff.
Yeah. Actually, no, we saw a little bit of that actually, now that you mention it, on Batman. We were using Unity, and when we upgraded versions, it devalidated some of our tools we were using. So some of the tools we had weren't working anymore, so we couldn't use it. So we had to make new tools. Yeah. So
any sort of tool versioning upgrades mid development terrifies me.
Yeah, we did engine upgrades 4 times, I think, maybe 5.
Those migrations are always those things that get, like, you recognize it early that you have to do it, but then it gets kicked down and down until the absolute last possible. There's nothing else you can squeeze out of what you got. You have to do the upgrade. It's like trying to upgrade your computer piece by piece until there's a critical upload, like your motherboard can't handle the next processor. And it's like, okay, time for a full rebuild. That's terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, luckily the updates were like performance enhancing, so they were actually needed. And they did a lot of, QA testing before they pushed it to all the machines. So it's not like it broke everything. Just, it's like, oh, hey, this one tool that the artists use doesn't work now. So now one of the programmers has to make that tool, but they made it better, thankfully. So we had to, recreate some systems a couple of times.
Those unexpected costs always suck. And when those things crop up, you're going to have to sacrifice something else that you wanted to get that thing done. If you were starting a new studio or starting a new role with like no game in process at any point in time, what would be like your top 3 tools that you would want outside of, like, obviously you want a working engine and like 3D Studio Max or a working 3D tool? Like, what would you want as your like top 3 like personal things that are like, these are exceptional things to help your workflow or are going to really make things that much better on the project?
I mean, for one, always source control. Like,
now that you've had that experience, absolutely.
Like, if we're not using Perforce, there's something wrong. As much as I hate doing daily check-ins, definitely Jira. Like, I'm an artist, and my work, sometimes takes as long as it takes.
Yeah.
Like, it might take me 2 hours to get something done, or that 2 hours might end up being a week, depending on the complexity of the asset. It's like, oh, I'll do this. And then it's like, wait a second, I have to sculpt all this now. And then it's like, then my 2-week estimate gets pushed out. And it's like, oh, well, now my estimate timeline is off. And my PM's like, well, why is this different now?
But the fact you said you wanted Jira, that's a win for production. Having someone say they want to use Jira. My production heart is full. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. My wife, they use Jira as well. And most of her team doesn't use Jira for their check-ins, and she's constantly telling me about how they're doing the work, but no one's checking anything in, so no one knows where anything's at or where the progress is.
If they need a producer, I'm available. We can sort this out and we can make Jira work for them. I'm sure of it.
But yeah, Perforce Jira, so source control, progress management tool. I don't know. I guess those are kind of my two biggest ones.
That's perfect.
I mean,
Okay,
the
that's
other
great.
stuff is pretty standard. Art tools, every studio kind of uses the exact same art tools. And engines, it depends on what studio you're at. It's either Unity or Unreal, or if you're unlucky, it's an in-house engine.
One tool I thought was really interesting when I was at Wargaming Seattle, I was working with the level design team, and they were like the games that Wargaming makes, and this one was a unannounced prototype game that was canceled before it came out, but you can imagine what game they were making at Wargaming. And those games are just such attention to detail from the design to the art. Like they're counting rivets for historical accuracy. They're referring to architecture that was common in those and regions and everything and building it as authentically as they can. But the one tool I thought was the most interesting for my level designers that they requested a custom functionality around it was a ruler. That way they could measure distances, they could measure heights, and that way they knew how tall barricades were and how much that was going to cover your character at certain levels and the grade of hills that you were on, so that then they could make sure the gameplay from one evolution to another still maintained a sense of balance and flow, even if it wasn't directly obvious. Those level designers were almost like tailors using their measuring tape, and they were just going in, and I'm like, no, they should have had VR helmets and going in there and just like up to the screen and just using the two hand controls, be like, what's the inseam of this barrier look like?
Yeah, that definitely sounds like some tech artist tools that you'd be asking for. Like that's something that me as an artist, I would have made a block in Maya that was the exact measurement I needed and thrown it in there as my measuring tool. Because I've done that stuff before where it's like I need these things to be these exact measurements, so I'd export a gray block that's that size to make sure that everything comes in there at that scale.
Fantastic. I did actually something similar as QA on Guild Wars 2. I had a debug QA art item where it would spawn a Sylvari house and be like, this is the measurement to see if this is a catastrophic failure, or just kind of measure and be able to put priority to things based off of how far an object was floating off the ground, whether that was a P4 or a P3. We were going in there and doing very much the same thing. So we were using the artist's own scale to provide QA feedback and be like, look, you said that this is a big deal. So look, we've measured it. We're adhering to your rules. We are listening to you. So that's funny that you were doing the same thing, just white cube. Okay, so let's see. We went over your favorite game. What are you playing right now? Where are you spending your time kind of finding inspiration for what's next for you as you want to pursue games again?
Yeah. So I guess what games I'm playing, I've been playing a little bit of Pragmata, so that one's been pretty fun actually. It's you're essentially like playing a dad to a little android girl. I mean, she's not really an android girl, but I'm sure you've seen the gameplay and commercials
Yeah.
for it. It's
Oh yeah.
pretty fun. I like the gameplay mechanics. It's got some hacking and some like third person shooting. So it's different from some of the other stuff that's out there right now. As far as other things, you see my Gundams.
Yep.
So I'll take some time in the afternoon and clear the desk off and snap some pieces together and accidentally cut my fingers with an X-Acto knife a few times. Yeah, so that's kind of where I find inspiration.
So, well, we're coming up on the end of the episode. So, Tyler, it was great chatting with you. People can find you on LinkedIn, Tyler Labelle, Tyler space LA space BELLE. That's awesome. If people want to reach out, the link will be in the show notes, or you can search for him on your own. I'm sure you'll find him. Senior 3D artist, I believe it was senior. Yeah, senior 3D artist and outsource review specialist. So thanks so much, Tyler, for being on. Any last words of wisdom, pieces of things that you would like to say, or games you want to give a shout out to, or people?
Let's see, pieces of wisdom. Yeah, just I guess don't give up, keep going forward. Things are hard, but it's that last minute when you're about to give up that things tend to just kind of go your way. That's been my experience. So just keep pushing through. It's hard, but eventually it's going to get better.
I like that. It's definitely going to get better because we can't keep doing the same thing because obviously right now in the games industry, it is not working for a lot of people. So we'll get through this. We'll carry each other through. Tyler, it was so great talking with you. If you need anything, please just reach out and we can talk again. I'm sure other people have more to say or more to ask you. And so maybe we can do something again in the future.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Of course, thanks everyone for listening. This is the Summoning Hour podcast. You can find me on social media at Warlock Recall, pretty much anywhere, Twitter, Facebook, on LinkedIn. It's Joe Belousek, Belousek. I'm also on Blue Sky, Warlock Recall there as well. So find the links in the show notes, and we look forward to talking again. See you all later, and thanks for listening.